questions to consider when creating a brand identity.
Okay, what do you think a brand identity is?
I think it's like kind of like storytelling. So the brand identity is the story part, and it's what you're trying to tell your customers who you are, why you're doing this, like the story behind it basically, and then marketing is like the telling of the story.
Good.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's good.
how I think of it.
Yeah, okay, good. A lot of people think brand identity is like your logo and your colors and stuff like that, which that's included in that. So one of your questions later on, because I'll answer both of them in the one. Your question is, what is marketing in your own words? I want to ask you, what do you think the difference between marketing and branding is?
I think branding is trying to figure out what the company does, like who they are, and then marketing is trying to get that message out.
That's good. I really like Marty Neumeier's definition of it. So Marty Neumeier wrote a few books. One of them is called The Brand Gap, and I recommend every business should read that. It's like a whiteboard overview. You could read it in a short airplane, ride. But it's called The Brand Gap, and the whole premise is that here's you, here's your users. There's a gap between your users. Like, how do you bridge the gap between your brand and your users, or creativity and strategy? And the way he defines brand is, it's not what you say it is as a company, it's what they say it is. So your brand,
The users say it?
what people.
Oh, okay.
You have a personal brand, Johanna. You have, because people have a gut feeling about you. They have an opinion about who you are. That's what your personal brand is. And so it's people's gut feeling about a product, a company, a person, or an organization. And so it's not what you say it is, it's really what other people say it is. So branding is the art and science of influencing public perception about a product, a company, or a thing, right? So it's influencing that gut feeling. It's about being intentional about that. So everything breathes into the brand. Your brand is marketing is part of your brand. Your logo and graphic design is part of your brand. Your messaging is part of your brand. And so when you come up with a brand identity, that is a time for an organization to kind of step back and say, who are we really? It's like being self-aware. And so it's about understanding who we are in regards to our voice, our culture, our tone, what our value proposition is, what we're really offering as value to people, and what our messaging should be. And so it's taking a look at all of that. So questions to ask when developing a brand identity, it depends on what aspect of the brand's identity we're going to be working on. And so some clients, they come to us for just messaging help, like help us really clarify what it is we do. Because a lot of businesses, they think they're in the business of, we'll just say, whitening toothpaste, right? We sell whitening toothpaste. Well, that's the feature, that's what you do, but the benefit that you offer is a brighter smile to people. That's really what you're offering. But even if you go deeper under that, there's values, which are your underlying motivations. And so why do people even want a brighter smile? Why do you think?
To look good, so that they can fix their brand and help people perceive their teeth.
Right. So it's self-confidence, right? You feel better about yourself. So if I was selling whitening toothpaste, I'm not selling whitening toothpaste, I'm selling self-confidence. And so those are the types of questions that I might ask a company is like, what are the features? What is it, the tangible things that we're actually offering? What are the benefits, meaning the advantages that people get from it? And then what are the values, those underlying motivations that cause people to want to even have part in your brand? So I would ask those types of questions if it comes to messaging. When it comes to the website, that's a whole nother set of topics. So I spend about 3 hours doing UX design strategy, which breathes into the brand. Because if you go to someone's website, especially if they're a web-based company, and you have a terrible experience, well, that's conveying a message about your brand, right? And so user experience design is a huge part of branding, and we have a whole list of questions that we'd ask. But underlying, so the bare minimum is, what do you do? What advantage do the people get from what you do? And what are the underlying motivations that cause them to take part of that? And then the answers to those questions help give us the answers to the rest of how the brand can be position themselves.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I never actually thought of a brand as like a person. I always thought of it as like an industry or a company, but that's pretty cool that like I have my own brand.
Well, and it's also scary too, because now you're like, well, I got to look at my social media and say, what message am I conveying, or you know, the way I dress, you know, I have a personal brand, right? So I'm conveying before, you know, we say don't judge a book by its cover, but everybody does it, right? And so the way I look is perceived a particular way, and branding is really just being intentional about that and saying, I know how I look, and I'm looking like that on purpose.